Okay, says we're live.
Okay, cool.
Oh yeah, we're live.
Yep.
But the video's
But
delayed. Okay, says we're live. Okay, I'm gonna have to mute my.
yeah, you're gonna get feedback from me.
Sorry, everyone, we're having technical difficulties. I should be wearing headphones. We're trying to figure this out on the fly. Give me 1 second.
It's okay, everybody. You still got me.
Okay, I'm back. So Tim Lim can't join our chat, so we may not be on long. Sorry, we're getting a late start.
Yeah, we're trying to help Tim figure out what's crashing his phone and his tablet, and unfortunately, we didn't have any success.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out my audio issues.
Well, I
keep hearing myself back, and I know why, because I've got the audio turned up in my YouTube. Okay, now we can talk. I was getting double audio. We are just a couple of comic book clowns trying to figure out this technical mumbo jumbo here.
All right. Well, Tim said he'll figure it out one way or another.
So Tim can join us, I guess, in the chat. But he has the link. I don't know what's going on with Tim. Hey, if anybody in the chat can troubleshoot our issue. So here's the issue. You have to be on Google Hangout. This is really complicated. Has anybody else done this before? Like YouTube makes it crazy complicated. It's like, it's too much. So we're on Google Hangout, and you have to be on Google Hangout to do a YouTube live stream. And I sent links out for the broadcast for the Google Hangout to Tim and Mark. Mark can join, but Tim keeps getting booted. So if anybody knows what's going on and can help Tim out, that would be awesome. So it looks like nobody knows. I appreciate everybody for joining, though. We're probably going to be on here very long because we have to sort out our technical issues.
Without Tim, we have nothing.
Yeah, Tim brings the heat. Yeah, I emailed the link, and we actually did this twice. So I emailed 2 different links, and Tim cannot. He keeps getting booted out of the Google Hangout. Anyway, what's new with you, Mark?
Nothing much. Just writing that script for you for Red Rooster. I'm gonna have the first draft done mid next week for that Indiegogo special, and I'm having a lot of fun on the climax right now.
Oh, climaxes are always fun. I hope they should be.
Unless you're faking them.
I don't know.
Are we still talking Saturday morning cartoons?
Yeah, this is Saturday morning cartoons. So I had an interesting evening last night.
Yeah.
So I hear I'm in the studio setting up these sound panels that I just ordered so we'd have great smooth audio. And it's like midnight or nearly midnight. And I hear my door. I hear my door slam with my back door, which is all the way across the house. And then my alarm, I'd set my alarm already for the night. And my alarm starts going off and I'm like, oh crap. Somebody's in the house. And so I have a firearm near my desk. And so I thought it was go time.
Oh man.
I mean, I have good trigger discipline and like I know what I'm doing and practice and stuff. So I don't play around. These are don't mess around with firearms unless you really know what you're doing. But I thought someone was in the house.
Oh man.
And so I am like Rambo. I grab my firearm right away, and then I'm like clearing room to room, calling Elizabeth's name, and she's not answering.
Oh no.
And so I'm like, my heart starts racing. And anyway, I go out the back door and in the backyard, she's not there. And then she calls me on my cell phone. So and she's like, come out front. There's been an accident. And anyway, so I go out front without my firearm, of course. Uh, I put it down safely and carefully, as one should. Uh, yeah, and there was a pretty nasty accident actually. It could have been really bad. So we had a work van, one of these white utility vans,
Yeah.
and it was in the neighbor across. We live on kind of a busier street
Mhm.
in the middle of kind of a small city, and it was across the street, and it was not in their yard, but like up on their sidewalk, and uh, the door was open, and the lights were blinking, and the airbag was deployed, and down the street about I don't know 150, 200 yards were a couple more, 3 or 4 cars on the side of the road. It had been sideswiped, so the guy, I guess,
It was wet last night. He probably lost control and hydroplaned or something.
oh no, no, that well maybe. Maybe that was might have been a contributing factor, but we get to the guy's van. The driver's side door is open, and he is nowhere. Like he fled the scene lickety split.
Oh
And
yeah.
there were 2 beer cans on the dashboard, a
Never
beer
mind about the
can, yeah,
hydroplaning.
a open a half full beer. These are the big beer cans too, like the big tall boys that you can get, right? So they were all and an open one in the cup holder, and then in the floorboard were 2 bottles, 2 little bottles of what's this, like Fireball or whatever that stuff is. I don't know. I don't.
The cinnamon whiskey. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't drink that nasty stuff. But yeah, 2 empty bottles of Fireball, which I don't know. The guy must have been lit as a skunk, that's for sure. And anyway, nobody was hurt, and it actually could have been very bad. Like somebody could have been killed. It was pretty bad. His
got out of
tire,
his car and just made a break for it. He has to have been drunk.
dude.
Like, oh, they'll
Yeah,
never catch me. They'll never know who I am if I run away.
yeah. So it was a work van, and so it had like the logo on the side and the phone number. The guy left his cell phone.
They probably have one of those bumper stickers that says, "How's my driving? Call one."
No, I don't think he did, but I mean, it might as well have. He had his ID hanging from the. I'm assuming, unless it was unless he stole this van and he was just joyriding, which is, I guess, always a possibility. I don't know, but he's not going to get very far. He left his cell phone.
Well, last week I was driving to work at like 6 in the morning, and all of a sudden, like just a few meters from where I pull out on the main road, just gridlock. I'm like, what's up with that? And I finally make it to it. So it was a cherry picker that was fixing a power line, and somehow, some way, the cherry picker fell over on its side into a ditch on the side of the road. So there's this huge truck that's just laying sideways.
Dude, that could be really. If it was someone in the bucket, that could be really bad.
That would be really bad. You ride that down.
That was actually one of my, because I in college, in the summers and on Christmas break, I was a tree trimmer, doing hard labor, trying to pay part of my way through college, even though I don't think that's possible anymore unless you're really, really clever. It's too daggum expensive. Yeah, that was like one of my greatest fears. I'd be up with a tree trimmer and like some gust of wind would come by. I mean, these things were fairly stable, but when you're way up in a bucket truck, like 35, 40 feet sometimes, trimming a tree, and like, golly, if you fall out of that thing, you're in a lot of trouble.
Oh man, I used to work in a warehouse, and I did pay my way through college working for in a warehouse, but that was like, only 1 or 2 classes a semester, and it took forever to do it. But we didn't have any guardrails. We had these 3 tiers of shelvings, huge shelving units with giant HD TV stacked on them. And so I would have to take the hydraulic lift up to the 3rd story shelf, and then I'd have to kind of like maneuver around, sidle my way across the ledge, pull the TV out, maneuver it, and then push it down towards the hydraulic lift, again with no guardrails. remember I was picking one up, my back facing the ledge, and I leaned back too far, and I started teetering over the side of the ledge, like, oh, I'm gonna die.
Oh my gosh.
So what I did was I bailed the TV over to the side and managed to get my balance back just in time. But yeah,
Jeez.
all those times I almost died, and we almost didn't get Red Rooster.
Uh, so speaking of almost died, when I was a tree trimmer, so there was this guy. He was like I don't know. He was one of these guys. He was a little guy, like a little squirrely guy, and I'm from Arkansas, and so he was real kind of backwoods, and he was tiny, and he was one of these guys that probably, you know, he was probably did too much meth. Is I guess my assumption. I don't know what he was doing, but he was not. He was probably like 35 and looked 45 or 50. But he would. I guess he was the main he was the guy that would do all the dangerous stuff, right? So and he wanted to, yeah. But I mean, I think he'd come to work high, pretty much, and which is crazy. He would do crazy stuff like, you know, tie himself from tree to tree and jump from tree to tree, essentially, like doing stuff that was not cool. And I think eventually my boss, who I went to church with, and he's a pretty good guy, let him go because he was a liability. And
yeah, insurance isn't going to cover that guy.
Yeah, and so I cut trees one winter, and he was on the crew. And then I went back for another semester and came back in the summer, and he was gone. And my boss said, well, we let the guy go because he was just, you know, I think he was coming to work high and doing dangerous stuff and was not responsible, of course, and all that kind of jazz that comes along with, you know, being a guy like that or whatever. And then he said, yeah, and he said 2 months after I let him go, he went with another crew and he fell out of a pine tree and now he's dead.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Fulfilling prophecy there.
Yeah. So don't drink and drive, and don't do meth and climb trees. That's my advice this morning. That's like that's Saturday morning. That's like the cartoon morning show advice.
Oh, that's like one of those G.I. Joe PSAs. So there's a little kid out there who's got, you know, like a hash pipe or a crack pipe, and there's a tall tree in front of him. Like, come on, Billy, it'll be fun. Don't do it, Billy.
Don't do meth and climb trees. In fact, don't do meth in general. That's probably pretty good advice.
Do meth responsibly is what you're trying to say.
No, I'd say not do it at all. Although I guess you could probably make a lot of comic books. I don't know. I've never done that. So
now I know.
It sounds pretty nasty to me.
Well, what are the people in the chat? Because I don't have the YouTube link up, so I don't see the chat.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I should be looking at chat. I'm just getting used to this. We got a couple of call outs here, so I'll B Hennessy says congrats on the first stream. And he says he's learning a lot. Thank you. Well, thanks for following along, everybody. We appreciate our audience. I guess somebody says t-shirts. That t-shirt sounds like a great Indiegogo reward. I don't know what t-shirt they're talking. Oh, don't do meth and climb trees should be on a t-shirt. So yeah, it's like we can make that a catchphrase. Don't do meth and climb trees.
I'll work that into the script somewhere.
Did they have meth back then?
They had something.
I don't know. They had, yes, I guess there were always uppers somehow. Mountain Dew, Grease Lightning, or whatever it was called, from a still.
Balls or something.
Yeah, and there's always something to get you lit, I suppose.
Nothing was illegal back then, so.
Oh yeah, they had cocaine. They had cocaine and cokes.
Yeah, they had nose candy. That's what they called it. Don't do nose candy and climb trees.
Yeah. Should they bring cocaine back in Coke products?
I wouldn't.
What's the? Was it like a minuscule amount? Like, I mean, it seems rather shady, right? Because they're gonna
really minuscule amount. I don't know if that's an urban legend or not. It might have been one of like the Coke founder's original recipe that, you know, when he was making that stuff in his barn with an oar in a bathtub. You know, maybe when they finally actually manufactured it publicly, they took the cocaine out of it. I don't know. I have to brush up on my Coca-Cola.
So yeah, I guess we need to look into that. Maybe we can talk about talk about
looking to get some cocaine because I know a guy.
No, don't do illegal drugs, everybody. That's not good. Yeah, but I would be interested to know if that was like actually in real cokes that were being sold. Maybe somebody in the comments that can look that up for us and know. But actually might make it kind of a funny, because okay, so here's I'm going to let people in on like an inside thing within the Red Rooster book, and this has been part of my design from kind of early on. So the Red Rooster character is when you meet him in the regular series, you're going to find out that he was it's in the pitch on on the website, marymuse.com. So he's a formerly popular vigilante folk hero, meaning that he was once celebrated like across the nation, sort of a recognized figure in the early days of like talkies and radio shows. And though there would have been radio plays about the Red Rooster, and he would have been kind of a well-known figure in the age of mystery men. Essentially, he was and he was capitalizing on it. So he was taking this thing called this mantle that he has called the Red Rooster mantle, which he inherits, which is the thing that you're supposed to pass down from generation to generation and be this kind of revered thing. He takes it and makes it kind of a commercial venture in the late 20s and early 30s. And that ultimately leads to it's kind of a betrayal in a sense of the nature of the Red Rooster and the motto and the mantle and what it represents. So he becomes a spokesman for a soda brand, and the soda brand is called Kapow Cola. And the tagline is, it puts the zing in your pop. So what we need to do is research Coca-Cola and see if we want to make Kapow Cola like something with actual like cocaine in it or something like that, and or a competitor or something like that. Maybe we can actually write this into the script where like they're Kapow Cola junkies, essentially.
Well, sales have been
or something
dropping
like
since
that.
they took the cocaine out of the formula, so they needed to find some way to boost sales, so they hired Red Rooster.
Okay, Joyful Slave says Coca-Cola was named back in 1885. Oh, wow, I didn't know it was that old. For its two medicinal ingredients, extract of coca leaves, and cola nuts.
Yep, that's the flavor, cola nut.
Yeah. So that's do they still use cola nuts, or is it all artificial now? I guess it doesn't really matter.
I've never actually eaten a raw cola nut. I don't know if they taste like Coca-Cola. I imagine if they did, more people would eat them.
Just send a quick text. My lawn guy has arrived. So I appreciate my lawn guy. And I tell him to go ahead and start on the backyard.
Well, be careful when your tree guy gets here. Make sure he's, you know.
Yeah, actually, I have to cut. I got to trim my trees, actually, because one of them's, two of them are dying. So I don't want them to fall in the house. But yeah, I'll make sure.
When I was renting a house back in Virginia, one of the trees died, and it fell over on the house, onto my bedroom while I was asleep, came through the ceiling, and the branches nearly impaled me. So yeah, be careful with that.
You may hear a mower. That'll just add to the ambiance. It is Saturday morning. Okay. Oh yeah, we were talking about colas. Let me see if anybody has anything to say about that. William Plain says it's probably all various chemicals that are all similar. Yeah, probably so. There's probably nothing real in Coke anymore. I mean, we're just corn syrup junkies at this point.
You know, it's probably healthier to snort Coke than to drink the amount of Coke people drink these days.
I don't know. It probably depends on how much of that stuff you're doing. Yeah. I can imagine anything can be really bad for you if you do too much of it.
Yeah.
I know I drank a lot of sodas as a kid. I don't really drink. I only drink them now if we go out to like a restaurant, pretty much. And I try to cut.
Yeah, I try to cut back. I drink those like canned waters, LaCroix or whatever that tricks my body into thinking it's a soda because I'm addicted to them.
Somebody says my lawn guy is a secret Russian agent. He very well may be. I don't know. I have to be really careful. I don't say anything that, you know, that might jeopardize my future political career. or I try not to. But yeah, he may be a Russian agent. I don't know. I don't think so. I heavily vetted my lawn guy.
Is he? Iranian agent,
No,
maybe?
he's a nice kid. He's helping me out around the house because with this Red Rooster stuff and all the things we have going on, we're super duper busy. And it's a kid I like, and a young man. I keep calling him a kid. He's a young man. He's like 24 or 23 or something like that. Anyway, okay, let's move on. So let me know what you think about Kapow Cola and the Red Rooster. We actually might make this a running joke. It's the tagline is puts the zing in your pop, and the Red Rooster is the spokesman for the cola brand. I didn't get into that. So the Red Rooster is the spokesman for the cola brand itself, and it's a part of the actual story. So it's a product, like a Coca-Cola competitor, and the Red Rooster, and it's a popular soda drink. Like it in the Red Rooster, like he'd be on the side of Barnes with these these Kapow Cola advertisements. But when you meet him in the story, he's been disgraced, right? Yeah. So all the pain is faded, and it's like a fading memory of the past. And people
don't recognize him for his heroism. They recognize him as the Kapow Cola guy. He's more of a mascot than a hero now, or an ex-mascot.
Yeah, and the public opinion has soured in such a way. So we're doing something with like how public opinion can be. So he has a downfall, and in many ways, that's what the Indiegogo special is going to be about. Is kind of his downfall that sets up the storyline. And I don't want to give away too much, but this idea is that the public opinion has turned, and the way it does is in many ways very tragic. And I think it's meant to be kind of a statement on how a person can be destroyed through one or a few small mistakes, right? How their life can be ruined, and in many ways through and it becomes very difficult to restore it and find your place in the world again. And that's in many ways what the Red Rooster is going through. So the cola brand, the Kapow Cola brand, is sort of the visual representation of that throughout the narrative. It's a symbol of his embrace of consumerism in pop culture, and taking what it was meant to be a noble lineage and turning it into a commercial success. And then as it fades away, I mean, when you meet the Red Rooster in the regular series, Kapow Cola is like, he ruins the brand of Kapow Cola in many ways. And so it's like this failing competitor to Coca-Cola or whatever. And it's just, I don't know. I think it's fun in a way, but I also think there's some powerful messaging that could be written into that. And I think it'll be fun for the audience to experience
the legacy he wanted to leave behind. The legacy he thought he was going to leave behind was a legacy of heroism, you know?
Right.
That he leaves behind a legacy of merchandising and spokesmanship, which is all anybody ever remembers him for. Like, oh, Red Rooster, wasn't that the crazy Kapow Cola guy who thought he was a superhero? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, and there's these goofy commercials.
Only the kids really, recognize him for what he used to be, what he really was, because they actually idolized him for his heroism back then, whereas everybody else just saw him as, Ronald McDonald.
Yeah, in many ways. Yeah, so he has a long road ahead of him to like restore his place within the community and the mantle of the Red Rooster and all that kind of stuff. That's actually, you find out in this. I just don't want to give away too much, but you'll find out I don't want to give away too much. We want to save some surprises, but I will let people in on this, and you can tell me if you're interested in this. So there's a cola bottler that one of my best friends lives in Durango, Colorado. So he's friends with the CEO of a cola manufacturer and bottler called Uber Fizz, which I think is a really cool name for a cola company. And so he's been in contact with the Uber Fizz CEO in Durango, Colorado, and he's very interested in perhaps doing a tie-in with our Red Rooster product. So there is a possibility of actually making Kapow Cola, which is our cola tie-in. So it could actually become a real product in the real world. And if you're interested in Kapow Cola, I've been thinking about making it a incentive or a something for our Indiegogo campaign, like a perk or whatever a goal, not a goal, but a perk and or an incentive or whatever, or a tie-in. It could be a product, like you could get a whole case of it, which is possible. I mean, we could make thousands of these things if people are really interested in it. Or you can make it at like an incentive thing where like if we hit a threshold of, I don't know, 50,000, everybody gets one bottle of Capel Cola, and you can open it and drink it. And I hear their colas are really, really great. He sent me a whole box of them to try. They evidently have a great root beer, but I want to make like a real cola, like a cola. My mic slipped here. A competitor Coca-Cola type cola. But they have all kinds of flavorful, interesting flavors.
Well, I tried to get you to drink Inca Cola, and you told me you didn't like it.
Oh, dude, Inca Cola was disgusting.
You're disgusting.
It tastes like liquid bubble gum.
Exactly,
it was really.
That's why it's delicious.
Yeah. Okay, let me see what people say they can't drink caffeine. Well, that's unfortunate. Caffeine's really delicious. it's the best ingredient. I don't know. Does it have a taste? I don't think so, but it's what keeps me coming back. Yeah, people think that's really fun. So maybe I think it'd be really cool. And I like that there's other things within the Red Rooster comic book that are going to have real world tie-ins. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we're really giving anything away by spoiling this, but the Red Rooster being a once popular vigilante folk hero would have had like a Cracker Jack box style secret society type thing, right? Where you get it maybe a decoder ring or
trading card, something like that. Yeah.
I think my phone rang, so I might get kicked off here. No, we're still live. Okay. I just hear when your phone rings, it might boot you, but I'm on my computer, so it should be okay.
Out the technical problems we had this morning, anything's possible.
Yeah, somebody's saying spoilers. We're not. These aren't really spoilers to the narrative of the story, but I like that there could be these real world tie-ins to with products with the Red Rooster brand on them that we could actually make in the real world. I'm very interested in doing that. Well, it's kind of a meta experience.
Yeah, I mean, for my end of things, what I'm having the most fun doing is I'm really loving writing the dialogue and researching how to write dialogue for characters from the 1920s and 30s, because then I get to go back and watch all my old movies. I've been reading a lot of those Mickey Mouse by Floyd Gottfredson collections because they're from that time frame, and how dialogue was rendered back then, how they rendered the dialects and the way people spoke and the sorts of expressions they used. And that's just a lot of fun in general to do, to research that and then try to emulate it.
Somebody says, the avid comic book reader says that they would love some trading cards with our amazing character designs. And I think that would be really cool. That might actually happen. I think that's something that Ethan is doing now as a perk or whatever for his Indiegogo Cyberfrog campaign. He's doing some trading cards. So yeah, and it actually makes a lot of sense because trading cards would have been something that would have been around, right?
Bubblegum cards, what they called them back then. But yeah. Now, for a lot of the characters, just coming up with the story material to write these books with you, we came up with, heavy-duty backgrounds for a lot of characters, but stuff that's not necessarily seeded into the dialogue or the story yet. But there's stuff that can be summarized and put on the back of a trading card. So we have all that material, all that copy just sitting around that nobody else would read otherwise.
Yeah, I want to do a trading card of we're going to give away one of our villains here. He's kind of a smaller villain, but this is somebody that Mark came up with, a guy named Vermin Eater. I haven't drawn him yet, but he's like in my mind. Like as soon as you gave me the name and the 2-sentence pitch.
I think you should base him on the guy you told me about, the tree climbing meth addict. Design him in honor of that individual.
I think that's a pretty good idea because he kind of looked like a squirrel. Yeah, just make him like you missing a tooth. Well, he was probably missing more than one tooth. They were pretty gnarly. But yeah, Vermin Eater. I want a Vermin Eater trading card. I just love that name. It tells you everything about that character like right away.
That was actually some of the most fun I had, was trying to come up with backstories and origins and names for bad guys, because they're more fun to write than heroes. The heroes can be fun too in their own way, but everybody loves a villain,
Yeah, I think so. And since the villains, it's in many ways like a Batman, because this is what we're doing is in some ways it's Batman in a barn. Yeah. This is a character with no uh, with no real powers. He just has a set of ideals, and he's a kind of acrobatic, and he trains hard despite his shortcomings. But I think that's really what makes him a potential hero. Is he's had success, and then he fails, and now he's trying to rebuild. Either has the choice to either run away or rebuild his and restore the and live up to the values of the Red Rooster mantle and what it really represents. But that's kind of, I think, what makes him a real hero. He's not a Uberman, right? He's not he's not all powerful and godlike in any way at all. He's an everyman who just rises to the occasion most of the time. So you want to talk about some media stuff?
Sure.
Because we had dinner last night and we were talking about a few things. I think we bring back. What do you want to go first?
Well, we called this Saturday morning cartoon. So is that topic you want to discuss today, or what media stuff do you want to talk about? Star Wars, or is Ethan?
Well, Star Wars is kind of fresh on my mind.
Yeah.
But I'll read the chat and see where they want to take us to, and we'll maybe talk for maybe 20 or 30 more minutes. But I watched Star Wars the Last Jedi. We watched that 2 nights ago. So everybody, I have mixed feelings about it. I'm very interested to. Sorry, I'm getting some messages. Yeah, what were your thoughts, Mark, about The Last Jedi?
Oh man, everything they could have done wrong, they did wrong almost intentionally, it felt like. I mean, I think the worst aspect of that movie, among many, was the entire second act or middle section. It's when Finn and Rose go on that detour to the Guilt planet, and all it is just like an hour-long marathon of lecturing about why gambling is wrong, why wealth is wrong, why horse racing is wrong, why animal abuse is wrong, why child labor is wrong, and then they got to free all the animals and inspire the children and defeat, all the rich, wealthy people, and then they get out of there and it accomplished absolutely nothing. It was a pointless detour that justified lectures, and that was the only purpose of that entire 45 minutes to hour in the middle of the film, because it didn't actually impact the narrative any way whatsoever. And I was like, so this was just Ryan Johnson taking an hour out of the middle of the movie to use these characters as mouthpieces and the film as a soapbox for all of his various agendas and beliefs, and it was just a waste of time.
Yeah, I mean, it was so thinly veiled. But we got this really beautiful moment at the end. Well, at the end of that story arc for Miss Tico, the lovely Rose Tico. I thought she did a nice job despite a really poorly written.
I mean, I think character. A lot of that's the thing is the cast was good. All the actors in there are good actors. They were just given a very bad script, a very bad story, and not anything to work with. I mean, I don't have anything against any of the cast.
The moment at the end, right, where I think she delivers something that we should all consider. It's right. And it was a little corny line the corny line. It was corny, right, where she says, I can't forget the whole quote, but it was like, don't destroy what you hate, but save what you love.
It's one of those things where if you take that line in a vacuum, it sounds inspiring, but when you actually put it in the context of the film, Rose stopping Poe from killing himself made no sense, because I mean, what's her name? Holdo, she killed herself to stop the Empire.
Mixed message.
And she was a big hero and everybody celebrated it, but when Poe tried it, she stops him and lectures him and says, "No, don't do that. That's bad." Like, so
and that wasn't Poe, it was Finn, right? That was
Finn. I'm sorry.
I get them mixed up too. I couldn't. So interestingly enough, ironically, I suppose, The Force Awakens. I fell asleep. So The Force Awakens, ironically, I fell asleep like 3 times. I could not finish that movie, and I finally got to the end.
If you've seen the original Star Wars, you've seen The Force Awakens. I think is the thing. It's like
I kind of figured that. Except it was just more boring. It was. I really had trouble with that film, just kind of finishing it. But yeah, this one I was able to stay awake the whole time, and I think it's because it was so. It was interesting because it was there was actually something really noble about Kylo Ren's story, and there were some really great moments in Kylo and the actor, and I forget his name now. Um, Somebody remind me.
I don't know his name, but yeah.
He was really good. Like
Oh yeah.
he looked intimidating. He was imposing on screen. I think he really he worked out for the part. He made himself an imposing fellow. Like he got into the role, and I
Well,
think
he's
he
an
did a great
interesting
job. He was
character because he's imposing because he's so powerful, but he's also kind of a whiny, petulant child, and so
yeah
he's kind of that weird balance of like, God, this guy is just a little, you know what, but oh, he can also force choke people, and he can, and he's got the lightsaber and all that stuff. I guess he's kind of like Anakin was in, Episode 3 in the prequels, where Hayden Christensen was just, a whiny little kid, like even from my point of view, the Jedi are evil, but he's also this great, powerful, super Jedi. He's kind of
yeah.
channeling that, I
I
guess.
thought that and like I felt they made him too whiny. Uh,
Way too much.
him and that general who failed in the opening act. Like they were both like
Mm.
they made him too whiny in the first movie and not powerful and intimidating enough. And
The problem though is that so in that entire final battle is that the only reason the resistance or the rebels or whatever they call themselves now, the only reason they got away was through Kylo Ren's like manufactured stupidity that happened for no other reason than to facilitate the good guys getting away. What's going on? So I mean,
sorry,
like it's when hologram or ghost or projection, whatever, Luke Skywalker shows up. All the AT-ATs, the AT-ATs are about to blow everybody away, and Kylo's like, "No, everybody just stand here and do nothing and watch me have a badass fight with Luke Skywalker." And then, of course, it turns out to have been a distraction, so the Jedi's could get away. Like, so his stupidity was the only reason the good guys lived, and it was such a manufactured for the plot, moment of stupidity, like when uh, the bad guy has the hero dangling over a pit of sulfuric acid, and like, in 10 minutes you'll be dead. Well, gotta go, and then they leave, and then the good guy gets away. It's that caliber of writing, that Saturday morning cartoon writing, if you want to call it that, but maybe it's even worse.
yeah, I just thought there were moments. So somebody, Adam Driver, was the actor,
Yeah.
and yeah, he did a great job. And there were moments in his story where there was a real moral dilemma for him, and that he presented to Ray. And I thought those were beautiful moments in the movie. And it's just I think it's a little just unfortunate that juxtaposed against some of the other things within the movie that distracted from those two characters, especially the Kylo Ren, Adam Driver's character,
Yeah.
that had they just focused on those things, I think they could have made an extremely powerful film.
Well, that's the thing, is if you take some of the little tiny isolated pockets of the movie out of the context of the rest of the film, like those little moments look great. Like Luke Skywalker when he sits there and he dies, when he's like watching the sunset and they play his theme, and it's that it recalls the first time we saw him in Episode 4, and then he disappears, like Obi-Wan did. Like that, the way that one little scene was shot was beautiful. The music, everything about it was great. You just have to divorce it from the context of why he died and how stupid that was. That little 30, 45-second moment in the film was beautiful. I wouldn't mind keeping that. I just kind of want to discard everything else surrounding it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I guess it's enough. It's kind of been beaten to death
I
in
know,
terms of people
yeah.
talking about Last
Let's
Jedi.
say
So I
we're
mean,
not
and
saying
I'm so
anything
late to
people
the
don't already
party.
know. Yeah. Yeah.
And I haven't seen Solo yet.
Who
So
has?
well, I feel like I should go see it. I'm not gonna like rush out to the theater or anything.
Yeah.
I'm not a big theater goer.
Yeah.
I don't get out to see a whole lot of movies,
Well,
but
Solo struck me as being like a red box movie, and you shouldn't feel that way about a Star Wars film. You shouldn't. You should be inspired. It should be an event to go see a Star Wars movie. But when we're getting one a year, you know. And now Solo's like, whatever.
Yeah, this is something we were talking about last night at dinner with Tim. That it to me as just a, I used to love Star Wars, like love Star Wars, especially in high school. I just got really into the story and the books and the movies and drawing the characters and making it part of my artistic journey and journey as a creator and creative person. And then kind of obviously being a little disappointed in in the prequels.
Yeah. Well, they're looking pretty good now.
They're just different.
Yeah.
They're bad in a different way. They're not totally unwatchable either, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the same way what I said about Last Jedi. I feel the same way about Revenge of the Sith, is that there's a lot of really bad stuff in Revenge of the Sith, but then there's small moments in that movie where like, that's pretty good. I can kind of take that and keep that, but the rest of the movie I can do without.
Yeah, Disney seems to be making some short-sighted moves by pumping out all this Star Wars stuff
It's
year after
franchise
year
fatigue.
after, like, yeah. And for just somebody like me who used to be a big Star Wars fan, and now I don't really get out to the movies very much anymore. Being a time issue, and I just have other interests. And we don't have kids yet. Imagine, if I have, a 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10-year-old or whatever, then I want to take them out and experience some of these things with them.
Well,
But I don't. It seems to be short-sighted because like they're going to burn everybody out, and then they're going to, build all these rides at Disney World, and if they can't, if they keep just, spinning their wheels, I don't know, maybe they're making some money, but like everybody's gonna get burnt on this stuff.
I love Disney World, and I think that the rides in the Disney World are probably the best thing to come out of this, because I mean, we even had Star Tours, back in the '90s, when nobody cared about Star Wars anymore, and that dead zone between Return of the Jedi and the prequels, there was Star Tours, and that was always a popular ride. So I think even if Star Wars goes away as media again for another hibernation period, those rides and everything down at Disney World will still be a lot of fun. I mean, like, I don't personally care about Harry Potter. I don't have any ill will toward it. It just doesn't interest me. But the Harry Potter ride down there in Universal Studios, Florida, is amazing. It's the best ride in all the Orlando parks, Disney included. It's incredible, and you don't have to like Harry Potter to enjoy the heck out of that ride. So I don't mind so much them doing the whole going all in for Star Wars Land in Disney Hollywood Studios. I think that's going to be really amazing.
Yeah.
But if let's people in the chat are kind of they're not happy with the negativity, and I can understand that. Everybody's been whining and moaning about Star Wars for the last year. So let's talk about the things we like about Star Wars. So how you got into Star Wars, your first experiences with it. What?
So I don't know. Star Wars was the first movie I saw. So I was born in 1978 in May, and it came out in 77. So I was in my mother's belly. So my dad was obviously too busy and too distracted and too many other concerns to go out and go to the theater. So at some point after I was born, it was re-released and sent back into the Royal Theater, which was our hometown theater. And so he took me at like 6 months old to go see Star Wars, which I think he said I just fell asleep. But yeah, so that was my first film actually, that I don't remember. But it was always around, and the older kids, when I was like, in '83, that's when, was it 85 when last Return of the Jedi came out? 83, that's right. So in '83, I would have been 5 years old. So I was sort of aware. I was more, I was still too young for it at 5 years old, but I was aware of it, and as something that the older kids liked. The toys were around. I had friends with some of the toys and stuff, but I didn't have any. I was just a little bit too young for that. But around, then they'd come on TV and we'd watch them a little bit, but I was still a little too young to get it. But then of course, around the coming of age time, 10, 11, 12, really middle school years. So that's like 8th grade, 7th grade. We had a copy of Empire Strikes Back, and I started to just in that and Indiana Jones, the first and the last one, and I would just burn those out all the time. And then they re-released the trilogy on VHS, and that sort of reignited Star Wars in my life, and I became a huge Star Wars fan. And I was at the time drawing all the time too. So then I had something that could inspire my artistic journey. And you know, I was a little bit older, so I could appreciate it on a bit more sophisticated level. Even though I didn't fully understand why I was appreciating the movie, that was something I didn't figure out until, you know, adulthood. It was like, well, they were tapping into these ancient archetypes that resonate with all of us, and presenting it all in a way that had never been done before. With, well, I won't say never been done before, but presenting it in this new package with these really, you know, great characters and but yeah, it sort of became intertwined with my journey as a creative person and an artistic person. And then I read all the books in high school and junior high and stuff, like the Admiral Thrawn series,
Yep.
and all of those things. So I got really into those
Look who's
for
here.
years.
Oh my
Is
gosh,
Tim in?
I can't believe it.
Tim, how did you get in?
So I have no idea. I'll tell you what. I had my two devices. I had my newest iPad and my phone, which are recent. I bought them within the last 2 years. Those are the two devices I couldn't get on. So I called Apple, or I mean, I called Google, and they said that is an Apple problem. So I just got off the phone with Apple. They said that's a Google problem. I literally pulled an iPad from storage, like one that's 3 years old that has not been updated in over a year. And I just said, oh, let's just try this. Then it worked. So I don't know why the other two newer devices are kicking me off, but this is the older device. You can see that the camera is not working, but hey, you get to look at my little guinea pig. So,
well, yeah. So the topic we've been talking about is how we got into Star Wars. So Mitch was just telling us about his first experiences and what drew him into Star Wars.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, I mean, all I can
I
say,
pretty much wrapped up mine, so you go ahead.
I mean, all I can say is that it was kind of like a babysitter. I mean, frankly, what happened was there was one day where I think Dad had to babysit, and his tactic was just to let me watch movies. So he he let me. So I watched the Star Wars trilogy completely out of order. He let me watch Return of the Jedi, then it was Empire, and then it was A New Hope. And so I was very confused as to what was going on. But that was kind of my introduction, and I was hooked. I mean, ever since I think I saw Return of the Jedi when I was 5, and ever since then, I've just been kind of really into it. I think some other people, they get into it kind of later, but my interest in it has waned over time. I mean, I was really into it, and then I think I peaked fairly early on as a kid, and then pretty much after the special edition, I just never really had any interest in it anymore. I think it's just, I think as a kid, your expectations are so high that anything that you were looking forward to, you just get deflated just because it's never what you think it's going to end up being.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the prequels, because I mean, the extended universe had been around for what, 15 years before the prequels, between 83 and 98. So everybody had their own idea of what the Clone Wars was, what Obi-Wan and Anakin's falling out was, how Darth Vader was born, all that. We all had our own headcanons. And obviously Lucas was not obligated to try and match our fan fictions and to meet those expectations. He did his own thing, and you can say what you want about the execution of them. I actually think a lot of those prequels, if you don't like the movies, read the novels or read the comic book adaptations without the bad acting or bad special effects or what have you. And the stories themselves in broad strokes are actually much more enjoyable that way. But for me, for getting into Star Wars, we were talking about this last night at dinner. So my first experience was, so I was born in '85. And so I guess around first or second grade, we're going on a field trip to Washington, D.C., and we had the special field trip bus that had those little TV monitors mounted on it, and they'd play a video, and they played Return of the Jedi. and I didn't pay any attention to it. I was too busy like roughhousing with my friends and like looking out the window and being, a stupid little kid. And a few years later, we rented the Star Wars trilogy from Blockbusters, and we taped them onto a beta cassette. So we taped Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi on one beta cassette. I don't know how we did that because beta is supposed to be a lot shorter, but we did. And I fell asleep halfway through Empire Strikes Back and woke up halfway through Return of the Jedi. So I thought I was still watching the same movie. So like, oh wow, okay. So they were running from the Empire. They made it to Cloud City, and now Darth Vader's dead. Okay, well, that took care of itself. I didn't get into Star Wars though until I was like 11 or 12, and just something finally clicked. I watched the movies again, and like the original versions, the special editions hadn't even come out yet. And I was like, oh man, these are really good. I want more of this. But the only way to get more of that, at that time, I called it a dead zone. And I saw someone in the chat, took exception to that. And I don't mean a dead zone as in there was no Star Wars content coming out. I just meant there were no movies, and that it had kind of taken a lull in its cultural phenomenon status. And so I got into the books. I read, the Timothy Zahn books, the Thrawn trilogy. I really loved the Tales books, like the Tales of Jabba's Palace, the Tales of the Bounty Hunters, Tales of Mos Eisley. I had a nice hardcover that had all 3 volumes of that together, and I just read those over and over again. And that really got me into the Star Wars universe and the characters and the setting. The idea that there were adventures happening, outside of what Luke and Leia and all of them were doing, and that got me really into Star Wars in itself. And then the prequels happened, and I kind of drifted away from Star Wars during that, but I never really stopped liking it.
Well, yeah, that's a testament to how powerful the archetypes in the original trilogy were, I think, right? All these characters had a very noble direction. Even, Vader, and that's kind of, I think, what makes Kylo Ren an interesting character, in my opinion, is he taps into some of that too, and they cast a great actor for that. But yeah, I think that's just a testament to how powerful those original stories were. If I certainly, if I had to do it over again, if it was my movie, in fact, I don't even want to get into that because this is so we're just gonna like I said, it's beating dead horses. Everybody's talked about this for years and years and years.
Yeah. I mean, we could complain.
It doesn't really matter.
It's like complaining about the special editions now. Like, oh man, everything to be said has been said.
There was this. I think one of the first phone calls I had with Doug Ernst, we were actually talking about this topic, and it's not really talking about how we would do it. It's the problem that Star Wars is going to run into from a narrative perspective. The short of it is this. So you have the original trilogy, which is classical Jungian archetypes, the idea of the hero's journey. And then if you look at the prequel trilogy, no matter how you might judge it terrible or not, it's decidedly Freudian in nature. It's all about the id, the ego, the super ego. You have the whole part with Amidala being older than Anakin. So you have a little bit of the Oedipus complex in there, and this whole struggle between basically 3 forces. So if you look at the prequels as Freudian, if you look at the original trilogy as Jungian, what other type of classical either hero's journey or psychology can you explore with moving forward? So this argument that's made is that as far as a storytelling narrative is concerned, it's really hard to proceed forward when you don't know what your narrative scope is.
You need to have an architect, and for all the complaints about the prequels, you can at least tell that with those 3 movies, you had Lucas as the architect, and he knew where he wanted to take those characters and their story to link them back in with, his previous trilogy. And I know I don't necessarily buy into that story. He says we're like, I wrote a 12-part story back in 1977, and I had it all planned out. I think people have poked holes in that and saying like, no, you really didn't. You kind of made it up as you went along. But it was still being made up as he went along by one guy who essentially knew what he wanted. The new trilogy they're getting a different screenwriters, different directors for every movie. They don't have episode 8 planned out when they're doing episode 7. They don't have episode 9 planned out when they're doing episode 8. And so you're kind of just getting stuff where that Sith guy from Last Jedi who looked like he was going to be a big deal in Force Awakens is just a throwaway villain in Last Jedi.
Yeah,
Like
it kind of reminded me in some ways of watching like a Doctor Who TV show. And I know there are a lot of Doctor Who fans, and I've seen a few episodes that were well written and well done, but they're all kind of like zany, campy, free form hodgepodge where it just seems like they'll come up with a good idea and then just kind of run with it. And yeah, sometimes continuity be damned or whatever. And I'm not a big stickler on continuity either, but to me, watching that movie a couple days ago, there are moments in it, and I'm not gonna, like I said, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but there were just moments in it that I felt like I was watching a Doctor Who television special or something like that.
Kind of funny. So I'm gonna go full plebe here, but my favorite Star Wars character is Boba Fett. Because in that era of the extended universe when there weren't any Star Wars movies or TV shows or anything out, and so all you had were the books and the comics, and there are a bunch of Boba Fett books and comics at that era, and I liked all of them a whole lot. But I mean, I will be the first to admit when you watch the original trilogy, I mean, Boba Fett's almost that kind of character where he's built up in Empire Strikes Back and he dies like an idiot at the start of Return of the Jedi, where he ends up being a throwaway villain. And I mean, even the original trilogy that everybody loves had those same issues that the new one has, where they build up a character in one movie and throw him away in the second one. It happens. Just so happens that Boba Fett lived because they wrote a story in the extended universe about it.
And I remember in the extended universe when he appears, I think for the first time since his supposed death in Dark Empire, that was like a big deal.
Oh man, that was like jaw dropping.
And it was actually kind of funny because I think Dark Empire was actually my first Dark Horse comic, and Dark Horse at that time, after they released those Star Wars comics with those really cool glossy covers, glossy cardstock, I think there was a time when Dark Horse was considered kind of a prestige company for like high-end comics simply because of the quality of the Star Wars books that came out. And I think it was Cam Kennedy and Tom Veitch, I think, were the people behind it. Yeah. That was fantastic. I mean, I know I think the extended universe, it gets a lot of flack sometimes, but those early ones at least, they were easy to keep track of because it was typically one book at a time. The stories were so good, and that's such a robust world for them to play in. The irony about it was, at least from my perspective, I think there's some people who probably disagree with me. I dipped out of extended universe when it became a little bit too much Star Trek and Babylon 5 in terms of its.
So there's so much expanded universe stuff. I mean, if you go to Wikipedia, it's just bottomless. And I guess the nice thing about that is you can just skip the stuff that doesn't appeal to you. I never read the Young Jedi stuff and the New Jedi Order. I mean, I don't know if it's bad. The Yuzon Vong, I've never had to try and say that out loud before. Stuff like that just didn't appeal to me, so I just didn't read it. I kind of just hyper focused on the parts of the expanded universe that did appeal to me. So I basically collected like all the Boba Fett comics and all the Boba Fett books, and I read all those because that's what appealed to me. And I mean, you can do that with anything, like Batman. Batman is humongous, 75, 85, or 80 years of Batman, however long he's been around. And you know what? If you don't like the new 52 Batman, you can go read 25, 30 years of post-crisis Batman. You don't like that, you can go read Golden Age Batman or Silver Age Batman. I mean, there are so many options out there that you can find something you like that appeals to you. And it's the same thing with Star Wars Expanded Universe.
Somebody says we're ignoring the chat. I'm not ignoring the chat. I'm not sure. You guys are talking about Freud. I don't know that I have too much to offer over there. Although I recently watched a documentary on YouTube about Freud's daughter, and that was interesting.
Anna Freud.
Yeah, she was seems like a strange lady,
well,
and kind of a tragic figure, actually.
Freud was kind of a strange man. So.
I see someone in the comments said that Boba Fett movie needs to open with him escaping the Sarlacc.
Oh,
now, they announced a Boba Fett movie recently, and my expanded universe nerd thing is that it's the template, so it's already there. They just need to take a barv like that's Tales of Jabba's Palace story, which is really good, and Twin Engines of Destruction, the graphic novel by Andy Mangels, which are the two stories that explain how he got out of the Sarlacc pit and then what he did after he got out of the Sarlacc pit. and taken together, they are fantastic. And most people will say, they hate Boba Fett or think he's lame. You can read those two things; they're great. They make a great movie. I don't know if they will use them or not, but the template is right there waiting for him. But we'll just have to wait and see.
So Miller number one asks. He really wants to ask you this question, Mark. This is from Mark. Have you read the Republic Commando series?
No, I haven't. How many books is that?
Yeah,
Miller number one.
Or maybe Miller number one can tell us what it's about in chat.
I mean, so there's some where it's almost intimidating with how many volumes there is. Like, I guess that's the reason why I didn't really get into the Young Jedi Order or New Jedi Order, whichever one, is because it goes on for 10 volumes. One of the things I like about 5. Okay. I mean, one of the things I like about even the early expanded universe was that they confined it all to trilogies, because that was the Star Wars thing. So the Thrawn trilogy was just 3 books. The Dark Empire trilogy was just 3 miniseries, with the third one only being 2 issues for some reason. It was pretty easy to kind of to get your stuff out of that. And there was the Bounty Hunter Wars trilogy. That was I wasn't too big on that series of books, but it was okay. It had all the bounty hunters in it. But if this one's big on Mandalorians and Boba Fett, then I might have to read that series.
Yeah, he says it's all about Mandalorian culture, and there are 5 books. So that could be interesting.
I watched the Star Wars holiday special just because I had a Boba Fett cartoon in it. So I mean, I'll put myself through anything.
What about I'm seeing if anyone in the chat knows this, but does anyone remember Skippy the Jedi droid? That was the best.
Oh, yeah.
In the expanded universe, that was single-handedly the best story that I read. I think I bought that volume just for that tale alone, rather than hunt down the individual issue. But Skippy is where it's at. Mark knows it. Yeah. I'm all about those kind of not even ancillary characters, but very, very, very obscure ones that aren't they're very what's the word for it? You wouldn't think that they would be any character at all. It's kind of like we've talked about how in Dark Empire, I love the scene where you have the 2 Ewoks who joined the rebellion and they're just fighting.
They're just with the rest of the rebels, wherever they go, piloting starships and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Funny. And I'm wondering if anyone in the chat, if they know the name of those 2 Ewoks. I know them, but I'd be very surprised if anyone else did.
Well, I mean, talking Ewoks, so even like I said before, when I was a little kid, I wasn't that into Star Wars. Star Wars is more of a preteen, tween thing when I was 11 or 12. But I did watch the 2 live-action Ewok movies on the Disney Channel when I was a little kid, and that was actually one of my earliest impressions of Star Wars. I didn't even know that they were really attached to the Star Wars movies. They were just these movies about cute teddy bears on a alien planet fighting witches and giants. I mean, they were totally different aspect of Star Wars than anything you would expect. And when the Droids and Ewoks cartoons got rerun on the Sci-Fi Channel before school, I watched them on that. And I remember watching the Droid cartoon and being floored when Boba Fett showed up as a guest villain in one episode of the Droid cartoon. I was like, oh my God, it's Boba Fett. The Ewok cartoon didn't really do anything for me. Sorry, Tim.
Hey, that's okay. I don't judge.
No. Well, to be honest, I think I've got some things that I need to take care of before we go to lunch. So we're going to have lunch with Mark and Tim later on, or I am. And I think we kind of maybe beaten Star Wars.
Well,
beating Star Wars down a little.
Things we like about Star Wars.
Yeah, I love that. But I think we're going to wind the chat down. If anybody has any last questions, you can fire them off. But I've got some things to take care of before we head out to lunch. And if you let us know if you like this format, and we're thinking we might do this every Saturday morning, or at least most Saturday mornings in the coming months. Just let me know what you guys want us to talk about. And I appreciate really all the feedback we got, especially about in the early part of the chat when we were talking about the Red Rooster stuff. I'm really super pumped that you guys are excited about it and are wanting to participate in the chat and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, all the writing for Red Rooster I've been doing lately, I'm really anxious to talk about it. So I need to convene with you, Mitch, on exactly what I can and can't talk about so I don't spoil anything, because I would like to go into it. It's really exciting. You're kind of just bursting at the seams to go on about it.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk more about that, and I'd like to talk uh, next time maybe less about Star Wars and maybe more about like creative process and something that maybe we can offer people that could be helpful in terms of crafting narratives and creating story structures and characters that are memorable. And this is hopefully we're really successful at that.
We got a question from Avid Comic Reader. Will you guys have any signings coming up? I'm dying to get My Hero Macadamia signed.
We have quite a few. I think one has not been announced yet, but I know that I think Mitch and hopefully his wife too, and Mark and I will be at a signing very close to the end of the month. That'll be local, and then I know that Mark and I will have a signing as well at a convention in Texas. And this one I'm pretty sure I can't announce because I think it's going to be said anyway within the next week, but it's going to be the Bell County Comic Con, and that's going to be first week of August, I think, for that one. And then we have, I think, two more that are going to be announced later on this year. So, yeah.
Cool.
Bruce Patnaud, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Patnaud, I don't know. You'll have to phonetically spell that out for me. I'm not the best. He has a question. For an indie creator, is it best to have a few issues in the can before going to a crowdfunding campaign? And I say that really depends. I mean, I guess in a way we have some issues in the can for Red Rooster, but Red Rooster, the Indiegogo is really just about funding a 48-page special that we are still scripting, that Mark is still scripting out, and we plotted together. But we have, after that, plotted at least 12 issues worth of material.
Yeah, at least. Yep.
But for Bruce, nod. Okay, Bruce Patnod, he says. So I won't forget that. He maybe in Bruce's case, I have the luxury of being an established creator, working with a writer who has some books under his belt and a colorist who's twice Eisner nominated and has a pretty solid reputation, if I do say so myself. And so maybe we have the benefit of being able to venture out and do something that hasn't been finished yet. We know we can deliver, and the audience has that expectation that we can deliver because we've delivered before, and we deliver every single month, especially in the coloring studio and stuff like that. I suppose I guess it just depends. Like if you really want to maximize your crowdfunding campaign, maybe it's best to have a few issues done and in advance so that they can be teased and previewed and you can have a reputation. I don't know. It's kind of hard advice to give. What do you guys think?
Well, I think so. You mentioned something that's very important. It's the fact that with you and with your wife, you have pedigree. You have a lot of experience having done this. So you know that you can meet a deadline. You know you can trust the Brightwisers to deliver a product simply because this has been their trade craft for the last few years. But if you're an unknown talent or if you're someone who is under the radar, then you definitely want to have a great deal of stuff done and completed so that you can actually show that to people when you start your campaign. It's not just, hey, give me money and maybe you'll see stuff done. No, you can actually see it as it's being produced. And I think that's something that actually I saw Richard do at Jawbreakers that was really cool. I think he started with 5 pages completed, and he said that he would post up to 15 as the campaign went along, and sure enough, he did. And that really got people excited because they got to see the kind of the craftsmanship process, starting with Malin's pencils to the inks, and then with Brett Smith coming on with colors. So, I mean, for example, with the crowdfunding campaign that I'll be having very later this year, I'm definitely going to have at least 5 to 10 pages finished before I even try and start it. Because as far as a known quantity is concerned, even though Mark and I we'll have 3 books under our belt by that time, it's still this idea that we're obviously in the very I'm in the rookie stage of getting that off the ground. So yeah, I would recommend that you have about 5 or 10 pages finished before you start anything. unless you're Mitch and Betty and Mark, then you can.
Well,
then
we're
you
going to
can
have some
rely on-
pages done too. So
Right.
I don't want to go in this. My original intent, like a year ago, I didn't think we could even run a successful campaign. Maybe I'm just selling myself short. But now
Yeah, I
I
think you
just
are.
the community, the comic book community has given us such support over the last 6 to 10 months, 12 months or so. And it just escalates and builds, and we really couldn't do this without you guys, because your support and your encouragement have really boosted our confidence in what we can accomplish with a great product and a great funding campaign on Indiegogo. And we are just, you guys have put the wind behind our sails, and we feel like we are just really cruising, and we can run a really successful campaign and make a great product. And none of it's possible without the support of the fan community and the patron community, whatever you guys want to call it. I'll call it fan community. Customers.
Yeah.
We really feel it. We feel it. We feel a change in the Brightweiser studio. Elizabeth does too, and we talk about it often. Seriously, a year ago, we didn't think that we didn't know how much longer we'd even be in this business, to be quite honest. My goal,
morale and confidence, that we might not have had before.
Absolutely, yeah, and it definitely makes a huge difference, and so we appreciate everybody. I'll give my last final spiel, which is, just keep up with us on Twitter. I'm M Brightweiser on Twitter. If you're new here, I'm sure probably all of you know that. And my wife is Betty B on Twitter. We're going to be building towards an Indiegogo campaign for our Red Rooster project. And you can see teaser artwork for our Futurist project that I'm going to be, essentially as soon as we're done writing the Red Rooster, or Mark is done with the script, we're going to get into the fine details of plotting that story finally and getting it released. We have some, if you guys can make the Red Rooster campaign a success, we have some really, really cool stuff to announce in the coming weeks and months ahead in regards to that project and other projects. I mean, really cool. I'm so excited. So that's kind of pitch for my stuff. Mark and Tim, you want to pitch out what you have coming up next?
I have Black Ops issue 1, which is coming out in the next couple of weeks. You can get that at your local comic shop. And issue number 2 is going to come out a few weeks after that. I believe pre-orders are still open for that, Tim?
Yeah, pre-orders are open until June the 9th. So you have until next week to finish your pre-orders for that. And for people listening, we don't want to tease too much. And I'm not saying that Mitch has anything to do with this, but there is something interesting, very interesting, that happens at the end of the second issue. And that's all I will say. So we thank you very much for the support. And I think
you, avid comic reader, for your support of Black Ops. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think it goes without saying, even though it's something that Mark and I have talked about, but not to use a pun, but we're putting our eggs in one basket, and that basket is definitely what Mitch and his wife and Mary Muse Studios is doing. And so we are very happy to be involved, just as Arkansans, obviously supporting our star player, but also for the rest of you who have tuned in and are going to be supporting him and Mark in with the Red Rooster project. This is very exciting. So obviously this is a new channel for Mitch, so we're all going to subscribe to him, and we're also going to if you guys have any feedback or any recommendations or topics that you want to talk about in the future, this is really exciting. We are going to be moving on the steam that you provide for us. So we thank you. I thank you, obviously, for backing us as well.
Avid Comic Reader has 5 pre-orders of Black Ops, and I think those are going to be I think they're going to be very valuable one day, actually.
Yeah, that's all we're going to say.
That's all I'm going to say. I think those 5, you order Black Ops, it's going to be worth a chunk of change one day. Is my bet. I want like 20. I want like 20 copies. Because I think it's going to be that valuable. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you very much. We're going to break. So you subscribe, ring the bell, whatever these people say.
Subscribe
for notifications.
Subscribe, hit the bell.
For notifications, donate to the Indiegogo campaign or whatever when it comes on. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. think that's about it.
So we appreciate you guys. Have a good afternoon. Bye bye.
Take care.
Bye.